Everyone wants a miracle, but the process of getting one is a lot harder than anyone expects. I'm Imogen Elvis, and today I'm reviewing All the Crooked Saints. So, this book has a bit of a checkered history for me. It seems like a lot of the books I read do, but this one in particular. So I borrowed this one from the library, and I have borrowed this one 4 separate times before I ever read it. Not because it's not a good book, and not because I wasn't excited about reading it, but when you borrow a stack of library books this tall, somehow something always falls to the bottom and you just never get around to reading it, and that was All the Crooked Saints for me. I was always super excited to read it, and then I would work my way down through the pile, and by the time I got to this one, it was time to take everything back because I'd had them for about 3 months and the librarians were about to kill me. So yeah, it took a long time for me to get around to reading this one, but oh boy, it was worth it. So the first thing I'll say is, if anyone's read The Raven Cycle, then this book is completely different. So don't go into it expecting that it's going to be anything like The Raven Cycle, because it's not. The other thing I'll start by saying is it's absolutely gorgeous. The writing in this book is just, it's like poetry, but in a story. I'm usually very worried when I read a book that has such beautiful writing, because a lot of authors tend to sacrifice the plot for, you know, the beautiful prose and all the lovely descriptions and such. All the Crooked Saints, by and large, actually bypasses that. It's got lovely writing and a really solid plot, surprisingly. So that was something I was really, really excited to find, because I was sort of concerned in the first few pages when I was reading it. I was like, this is really pretty, but is there going to be a story here? Question mark? But there was, so yeah. So another great thing about this book is the characters. And every single character in this book is just so unique, and they're all characterized within a couple of sentences so that you get a real feel for who they are very quickly without them sort of being a stereotype. They've all got their own flaws, they're all, you know, struggling with something. Everyone's got their own little bit of darkness, as is important in this book, especially when it comes to miracles. And just in general, it's a fantastic cast to spend an entire book with. And the other thing I really loved was the relationship between the Sawyer cousins, because there are a lot of fictional families where the family relationships are just terrible. And I mean, there are a few bad relationships in this that might need to get fixed up throughout the book, but in general, just the cousins themselves have just this tight-knit bond that you very rarely see between family members in books, and I really, really loved that. I just think that we need to see more family relationships that are so tightly bonded. And yeah, All the Crooked Saints did that really well. The other thing that I found was very interesting about the book and that I really enjoyed was the concept of miracles. So, as I said at the top of the video, everyone's looking for a miracle, but miracles, as found in this book, are sort of a 2-part thing. You have something that you're trying to overcome, and you are granted the first miracle, which brings that darkness to life. So it will change you in some way, so you can see what that darkness is, and then you can figure out how to overcome it for yourself, and that's the second miracle. So every miracle is 2 parts. The first part is done for you by the saint themselves, and then the second part you have to figure out for yourself. And just the whole idea of that, and just all the rules and everything surrounding that, was just so unique and so interesting, and it just makes such a good base for this book. So yeah, really enjoyed that. The only negative thing I would say about this book was, and this is a slight flaw with the absolute gorgeousness of the writing, but it had a very omnipresent point of view, which meant that we got into the heads of a lot of characters. Any character mentioned on page, basically you went into their head, and you're pretty much going in and out of people's points of view within the same scene. So you never really stuck with a core group of characters, and I feel like because of that, the story lost focus in some way, because there are just so many characters, and you can't feel that deep connection with all of them. I mean, at most, you should have had probably 5 points of view and left the rest of them to sort of limited, because being in everybody's head means that you don't have the focus of being in only a few people's heads. It doesn't become as personal to the other characters. But, I mean, I don't particularly like the omnipresent style of writing personally, so that, for me, is a drawback. But for you, it might not be. You might enjoy being able to get into every single character's head. But yeah, I think personally it would have been better with just slightly more focus in the point of view. But overall, this was a surprisingly good read, and I am so glad that I stuck with it and borrowed it a 4th time from the library, because it was well worth it. So if you liked The Raven Cycle or any of her other books, you should definitely pick this one up, because it's different, but it's beautiful, and the story is surprisingly deep and heartwarming at the end, and I just think you'll really enjoy it. So for me, this was a 4-star read. Really good, really interesting, not quite perfect, but pretty close. But having said all that, I'd like to pass it off to you. Have you read any of Stiefvater's other books? Have you read The Raven Cycle or any of her earlier books? Or have you read All the Crooked Saints? If you did you enjoy it? If you haven't read it yet, then are you considering picking it up, having heard my opinion? Are you considering picking up any of her other books? But that's about it from me this week. If you'd like to see more book reviews from me, then subscribe to my channel, because I have a new review out every single week, as well as book haul videos and much more. And if you want to see more reviews from me outside of my videos, then you should follow me on Goodreads, because I have reviews of everything you've seen here and so much more, because I am reading a surprising amount this year and it is impossible to make a book review video for all of them. If you want to keep up with my writerly exploits, then you should check out my website, my Twitter, and my Instagram. I'll have links to all of these things in the description. And if you'd like to be super amazing, then you could also check out my book, The Crystal Tree, a young adult fantasy adventure, which I think you would very much enjoy. But that's it from me this week. So until next time, I'll see you guys later.